Welcome to Streamer, Albany Public Library's show on music and film. We've got a special mix of recommendations for you today. The recent events of racist violence and the powerful responses to that violence have everyone here at Streamer reflecting on the larger American context of discrimination and the historical fight against anti-Black racism. Our program today includes first music, then movie recommendations from the Streamer team. Each of the recommended records and films gives testimony to a particular moment of that historical fight, and they're all available as library resources right now on Hoopla. Before we get to those, I want to recommend Taina Asili's new album, Resiliencia. We're going to have Asili on the program next week to talk about her music, film, and activist work, so make sure to tune in for that conversation. Within the tradition of protest music, Asili, through her music and videos, clearly shows the deep historical tangle of racism and injustice. Which is to say that she makes very clear that the racism many are experiencing today is no accident. It is enabled by a history that many of us have still not sufficiently grappled with. I'd like to add, though, that this is not just protest music. This is empowerment music. It is dance music. It is music that pays respect to a number of different musical traditions. It's music I've listened to quietly and thoughtfully in my headphones, and music I've turned all the way up and had my living room windows rattling. It's also music that we're about to listen to. So let's turn it up a bit, and then get to some more recommendations. Lyndsay recommends James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. James Brown's classic 1969 record, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, was released after one of the most turbulent years in U.S. history. Clocking in at a short 37 minutes, it incorporates funk, jazz, soul, and blues, layered in Brown's signature dose of cool. We're all familiar with I Got You, I Feel Good. But if you're looking for a well-rounded introduction to the godfather of soul, this album is your best bet. Anthony recommends Sam Cooke, Ain't That Good News. A Change Is Gonna Come from the album Ain't That Good News is arguably Sam Cooke's most famous song, born through inspiration of the civil rights movement and his life. This soulful song came after he was denied staying in an all-white motel. Like other good protest and civil rights music, this song makes the listener think and get lost in the melody. Meg recommends The Impressions, People Get Ready. The title track, People Get Ready, written by Curtis Mayfield just after the March on Washington, became a classic ballad of the civil rights movement. It is a simple invitation and call to all. There's a train a-comin', you just get on board. Lyndsay recommends Aretha Franklin's Young, Gifted, and Black. Oh, Aretha, we miss you so. The Queen of Soul, an icon for every young female Black entertainer. Without her, we surely would not have Alicia Keys, Beyonce, Jennifer Hudson, Rihanna, and many others. Her 1972 album, Young, Gifted, and Black, showcases Aretha's golden vocals, soulful, moving, and impactful. The title track preaches, Young, Gifted, and Black. We must begin to tell our young, there's a world waiting for you. This is a quest that's just begun. We hear you, Mrs. Franklin. Dan recommends What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye's album What's Going On was released in May 1971. At the urging of Four Tops member Ronaldo Benson, Gaye focused on writing about political and social issues, including police brutality, the Vietnam War, and the protests he saw happening throughout the United States in the 60s and 70s. What's Going On can be enjoyed as one single piece of music, presented in several movements. The album is woven together with instrumental tracks that beautifully blend elements of jazz, gospel, and classical music. The final track is a reprise of the title track, which leaves the listener back at the beginning of the album. Gay's lyrics are introspective and the tone is one of someone in mourning. What's Going On paints a picture of a people and a country that are ready for change. It is as relevant today as when it was originally released. Tor recommends Whose Streets. Whose Streets was filmed in 2017 during the Ferguson Uprising, but could have been shot today. Told by the activists leading the movement, the film documents the days following Michael Brown's death, as artists, musicians, teachers, and parents turn into freedom fighters, standing on the front lines to demand justice. As the National Guard descends with military-grade weaponry, these young community members become the torchbearers of a new wave of resistance. Meg recommends Freedom Riders. Freedom Riders tells of the events beginning in May 1961 that later helped take down the Deep South's Jim Crow laws. In the space of a few months, the Freedom Riders grew to include more than 400 people of multiple races and religions from all over the U.S. They were nonviolent and mostly students whose purpose was to ride the buses together through Alabama and Mississippi. They dared to congregate in white-only bus terminals. They faced beatings and imprisonment because of their boldness and commitment. It started as a small movement, but as one of the riders said, it was like a wave or wind that you didn't know where it was coming from or where it was going, but you knew you were supposed to be there. This documentary inspires you to think that change is possible. Tor recommends I Am Not Your Negro. I Am Not Your Negro documents James Baldwin's involvement in the civil rights movement and relationships with key figures such as Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers. Told using Baldwin's writing for his final unfinished book, it is both personal and political, showing clearly the impossibility of separating these two things. More relevant now than ever, the film pairs shots of police violence from Baldwin's lifetime with those from recent events, powerfully demonstrating how little has changed. Anthony recommends Soundtrack for a Revolution. Soundtrack for a Revolution tells the history of the civil rights movement of the 1960s by using stories of protesters and the music that tied them together.